And we are going to a man who has seen the finances of this country inside out, and so may be able to tell us a thing or two that's different from having a national conference, important as that is. Dr. Carlo I. Carlo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me stand on existing protocols. And I think we should not really presume to go into details discussing some of these issues. I think we should leave this place, from whatever sections of this country we come from, agreeing on a fundamental point, that we need to sit down and talk. It's been said in so many ways. There are people who have fears that such statements imply some notion of breaking up the country. That very fear, in fact, does confirm the need to sit down and allay the fears of all such people. There is no nation on earth that can solve its problems without sitting down to discuss the problems. As I said, we are not here to start negotiating yet. We are here to hearken to the wishes of all Nigerians that there should be peace, peace with security, peace with justice, peace within the law. There should be the rule of law, and that applies to every segment of this country. That means that there should be an acceptable constitution, which is where all these things are derived from. We need to have a constitution. Some of us readily joined Project Nigeria because we had the impression that our current leaders have been much more willing to understand this fundamental principle, namely the right of all people to sit down and discuss their destiny. Unlike previous leaders who paid lip service to this, and who, as has been mentioned, tried in so many ways to counteract the will of the people to sit down and honestly and openly discuss how they wish to be governed.
You have to pull in.
We all complain about expensive government. I'm not going to go into any details about the economy, but all that, they're all interrelated. We borrowed a federal system, but that is not enough excuse to run the kind of expensive government that we have. At the federal, at the state, and at the local government. It is much, much deeper than that. It is the question of leadership, it is the question of corruption, it is the question of inability to understand the point of governance, which is to provide service to those who are governed. The issue of corruption is a pervasive one. Pervasive in the sense that it permeates the entire bureaucracy. It's an issue of economic management, an issue about providing social services, the so-called social safety net of basic needs for the people for whom the good Lord has given so much endowment. These are some of the issues that need to be discussed. So, as I said, fundamentally, by the time we leave this place, there should be no more opposition to this need for us to sit down and discuss these issues. The issue of protection, of course. Protection, security, wherever you are. If we define a nation, we have no right to tell anybody not to reside within the law in whatever part of the country he decides to reside in, subject to the national laws and subject to the bylaws and so on and so forth. We have to provide the basis for anyone's living. Questions have been raised about education, health, and other necessities. When a state is properly constituted, when it relies on the mandate of the people, when it knows it has to be accountable, and that accountability is enshrined in the Constitution, so it is not at the whims and caprice of a political party or any other process outside of the Constitution, then people will be bound to sit up. The rest of the world is watching us. There are all kinds of soundings abroad that Africa is an emerging nation. We are growing nominally at a much higher rate than most parts of the world, albeit from a very small base. Let's not fool ourselves. Unless we have a sovereign national conference, sovereign in the sense not to displace any existing government. I think that should have been clear by now. But once the people approve the clauses of the document, that document becomes sovereign above any person or groups of people and above other laws, except those that will emanate from that constitutional conference. And let me repeat what Professor Nwabeze has said. Those who are opposed to this have to be enemies of progress and enemies of this nation. I think this request addresses the fundamental issues of all Nigerians, irrespective of where they come from.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me point out that Dr. Khalid Kakado has added a number of issues that we'd like to broaden discussion of. Corruption, a major cancer destroying Nigeria. It has become systemic, as some people say. The issue of security of life around the country and property, education and health care, which should be the most fundamental concerns of government, but have been treated so badly. And I have a two-time minister, spokesperson for government with a lot of experience to shed light on many of these issues. Mr. Femi Panikade.
Mr. Chairman, eminent personalities, elder statesmen, thank you very much for this very brief moment just to share a few thoughts. Let me start by saying, if I may, that I would like to disagree with our father, the eminent personality in the person of Chief E.K. Clark when he spoke about soldiers on the streets of Lagos. There is a distinction between putting soldiers on the streets of the Niger Delta cities that are burning and are being bombed, and places in the north that Boko Haram are striking and killing our people, left, right, and center, and putting soldiers on the streets in Lagos where people were exercising their democratic right or to protest against a government policy. Very big. Now, having said that, thank you. Please, if I may, so my 1 minute isn't taken up. So having said that, let's get to the point, because there are a number of issues that we really do have to tackle. I'm not living in the past. I'm a student of history, but I prefer to live in the present, and I prefer to consider the future. And I'm very, very worried for the future of this country. Let those that believe we don't have a problem recognize one fact. There were 3 amalgamations that were established by the British, our colonial masters. Just 3 major amalgamations of incompatibles and ethnic nationalities. One was the Sudan, the other was India, and the third was Nigeria. These were the 3 major projects. As my brother spoke about Flora Shaw, this was their concept, their idea. Bring these incompatibles together. By the time we leave them, they will fight and kill each other. That was the British concept. That was the British idea. That was the British plan. India has fallen into 3 parts since that time. Sudan has fallen into 2. The only one remaining is Nigeria. I want to say that I reiterate my faith in the Nigerian Federation. I believe in Nigeria. I love Nigeria. I would stand for Nigeria any day, any time. But not the type of Nigeria that is silently emerging today. And the type of Nigeria we have today is a situation whereby, and for some time, I might add, whereby some people believe that they are more equal than others. Some people believe that they have the right to control everything in this country well before others. Some people believe that the federal government should be in their hands, and if it's not in their hands, must be controlled by them at all times and at all costs. And that's the problem that we're facing. Very few people are prepared to say this. But some of us are. Some of us are, because it's our future, and we need to fight for it. I want to acknowledge the fact that if we do not have a national conference in this country, and I speak of a sovereign national conference, not a national conference, a sovereign national conference, whose findings and whose resolutions are binding on the government of the day, if we do not have that, where every single ethnic nationality can be brought together, no matter how big, no matter how small, on the basis of equality, equality of representation, equality of religious faith, and equality of personality and tribe, if we don't have that, your Nigeria is finished. That is the truth. We don't want that. But we pray that those in power and those that have been in the corridors of power for years and that are still in the corridors of power will recognize the fact that there is no suggestion, there is no belief, there is no philosophy that says everything must remain as it is forever. Everything changes. We have taken our unity for granted. We want to get our unity back. We need to sit and talk. We need to iron out the issues. I live in Abuja. I've lived in the north for 10 years. Yesterday I went to church. People were being searched as they entered churches. Cars were being searched. I mean, it's unbelievable. In Nigeria in 2012, this is something that cannot go on. On a final word, because I'm sure the 3 minutes is up. Let me just very quick one, please. Let me just say this. The threat of Boko Haram. It's not an academic issue anymore. It's not something we should just be discussing at conferences anymore. People are being killed night and day. And I am using this forum to call upon this government to show strength when it comes to the issue of Boko Haram. No dialogue, no discussion, no let's sit down and talk. Enough is enough. It is time that the full force of the federal government of Nigeria not just comes against Boko Haram, but those that are behind them. We have some, and I have to say this, within this government, high places in this government, that have got up and said that there is a link between the issue of Boko Haram and their killing people and the issue of revenue allocation and the principle of derivation. This is unacceptable. How can you suggest that there's a link between the two? We will not accept it. We will not bow to it. We will not tolerate it. And I stand with those that say we need to have a sovereign national conference. And I call on every Nigerian to stand up and say enough is enough. Let there be change in this country.
Thank you very much. I need to do something. We are following a certain pattern, but the way the sitting arrangement is, and my apologies for this, we didn't think through this actually, is that we may get all these men speaking, and the women who represent a majority of our people may not be on this. So I'm going to skip to one or two women before we come back to the usual flow. I'd like to go to Mrs. Ganiat Pawayemi and then to Mrs. Charity Shekari before we continue running our swing.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all the leaders here. I'm happy to be here today in this summit. And I thank God that what my late husband has been prophesying is now coming true. He has always advocated for sovereign national conference. But at the time he was saying it, people were saying all sorts of things about him. Now we have seen that it is a necessity and we just have to do it. Again, I have to speak on the oil subsidy because that affects every other person in this room. And I did a rally on the 31st of December. I started the rally at Sky Power and stopped at Ganifa Park before the NLC and the TUC. It's a matter that has to be resolved. We cannot be deceiving ourselves. And we don't want the government to pull a wool over our face that there is oil subsidy. There is no oil subsidy, and I still maintain it. And may I ask if Honorable Professor Tam David West is in the house? I want the house to invite him for tomorrow, since we still have tomorrow. He has a lot to say about it, because many people still believe that there is oil subsidy. There is this book which my late husband wrote 10 years ago, that there is no oil subsidy. It is exactly what is happening today. And this is the reason why I did the rally. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. And this is why I started the rally when I heard that it would be announced on the 1st of January. When I did the rally, people thought I was crazy. And now, thank God that TUC and NLC and all Nigerians who are reasonable joined in the strike. I thank God that the strike has ended now, but I'm not pleased with the 97 naira. I still want it back to 65 naira or less, because there is no reason why we should be importing oil, for God's sake. We have refineries here, and if we don't have, let us build more refineries. Our leaders have refineries in foreign countries, and they loot with that. Please, for God's sake, I want this to get to the president. This oil subsidy is a ruse, it's a bogey, and it's to deceive us. And it affects every Nigerian, young and old. And if it continues like this and we don't tackle it, by 2 years' time, the price of oil may be 300 naira. And I think not most of us will not be able to afford. I will not be able to afford it. Let me speak for myself. So please, there is no oil subsidy. Let the government turn around our refineries and let there be oil in Nigeria. We have it in abundance, and there is no reason why we should be suffering. They are quoting places like Ghana. Ghana doesn't have oil. Ghana took their oil from us, and now they celebrated about 13 or 14 years of non-existence of power failure. In my area, GRA here, for the past 1 month, we've not had light, and we've exhausted about 1,000 liters within 2 weeks, which is too exorbitant for us to do. So, please,
thank you, ma'am. Thank you. It looks like PHCN has the same plan for your neighborhood as they have for my house.
Thank you very much, and God bless you. So, please.
Thank you. I'll move to Mrs. Charity Shekari.
Please, I will want you to invite Professor Tam David West so that he can brief us. God bless you.
We'll invite him, but we hold similar views as him. We've done our arithmetic. We know that there is a need for a tax on petrol, but it is not a subsidy.
God bless you.
Subsidy does not exist.
Thank you, thank you. You buttress what I said.
Yes, Mrs. Charity Shekari, sorry.
Our leaders and our mothers, I greet you all from Kaduna State. I come from Kaduna State. My children come from Plateau State. I'm an indigene of Kaduna State. My children are indigenes of Plateau State. We are talking about the Sovereign National Conference. Yes. Let us not forget that people like me and Audi Ogbe come from the north, but we are not from the north. So, as we talk about the Sovereign National Conference, what are the real motives of those rejecting, refusing, and not wanting the Sovereign National Conference? And what also are the real motives of those that are insisting for the Sovereign National Conference? Nigerians. For as long as we keep personal, ethnic, sectional, regional, and religious biases within us, behind us, and we come frontally to say things when our motives are different, we have a problem. So we need a solution, and that solution is that we must sit together. And when we are sitting, everybody should be taking cognizance of, and that is, I should be able to come to Lagos State and get a job. I should be able to contest and be governor of Lagos State or Sokoto State or Borno State. So when we are looking at these things, there are some of us that are in the middle. And when the center cannot hold, the things will fall apart. I'm talking about the middle belt. So, Nigerian mothers are groaning. If you go to Plateau State, they say you come from Kaduna State, you married in Plateau. The Plateau man will tell you, you go and contest in Plateau, Kaduna. You go to Kaduna, the Kaduna man will tell you, your husband is from Plateau State. We want a Nigeria for mothers, for women, and for our future children. So whatever we are going to do, let's call it what we want to call it. We need to talk. We need to sit. And you know, when the father does not want to hold a meeting with the mother and the children, it means it's real problems. So the mother and the children need to sit together and find a way of getting the father to listen to them. And it's high time that Nigerians remain Nigerians. I want to be a Nigerian. I love to be one, but not this type of Nigeria.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. But let me remind us that we are live on Channels Television and LTV, which are also on DSTV, so the whole world is watching us. And when we speak, we must speak forthrightly so that history will know what we really stand for. I would like to return to our swing for a minute or two before I go to bring in some of our mothers and sisters who are here. So turn next to the Honorable Alabo Graham Douglas.
Let me observe all protocols. My friend Pat said that we should say we concur with previous speakers. I do concur with most of the speakers who had attempted to give you an evolutionary trend about Nigeria. But I want to cast your mind back to some few years ago, when the inequities and injustices prevailed in the country. The word marginalization was in the lips of every Nigerian. It got to that point where we, the elites and the elders, failed the younger ones. I'm talking particularly of the region where I came from. The youths became very restive and decided that they must have some bit of correction, especially at a place where you defecate in one place and take it as water in another place. No infrastructural development whatsoever. And a situation arose, what Nigerians describe as militancy. When it got to such a height, when it affected the marrow of Nigeria, the leaders decided to talk. And I remember the president then in council invited the leaders from the area and appealed to them. On a personal note, I'll say that our leader here, Chief Clark, was invited by Yaradua a couple of times, and we had meetings with him. He said, we want the issue of militancy resolved. And we, the elders, move into field. In spite of the wounds of the past, where a president will send a brigade to sack a whole village, shoot them down, kill them, try to annihilate them, we forgot all that and went over because we knew the boys. Nobody here will say that when criminals get into your village as a ruler here, as a traditional and paramount head, anybody who comes into my village, to my compound, automatically I know the good ones from the bad ones. But here, a script is being played out, where it was said that if certain conditions were not met in this country, the country was going to be ungovernable. And supporting what Femi Kaode said, the issue of Boko Haram, we can't be myopic to it. that we don't know the operators. We knew operators, and we the elders moved and brought peace for the interest of a united, indivisible Nigeria. But up till today, brethren, you can appreciate that not one single elite from the areas concerned has condemned the issue or mentioned them out what they are doing. My advice, therefore, is to support those who have advocated that we must sit at table at a conference, national conference. Not the word sovereign will be misleading and may tend to give the connotation of division. Thank you very much.